This is the Newcastle County Council Technology Subcommittee meeting. I'm the chair, Councilman Bob Weiner. It's Tuesday, March 18th, 2014, and by this clock in here, it is 1:32 p.m. We're meeting on the 8th floor of the City County Building, 800 North French Street in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, this committee is a subcommittee of the Executive Committee formed by County Council at the appointment of the President of County Council, President Chris Bullock, and he's tasked this committee to review the various approaches and iterations to videoing, which are included not only in Councilwoman Janet Kilpatrick's motion from last Tuesday's Finance Committee meeting, but also included in the various approaches that this committee has developed. So we'll get into that later. Right now, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The second item on the agenda is adoption of minutes because there is no quota and it's quorum. This is an ad hoc meeting, therefore there won't be any adoption of minutes. At this point, I would like to go around and have everyone introduce themselves.
Michael Kozakowski, Newcastle County Recorder of Deeds.
Daniel Shortquist, Executive Office.
Lou Hinkle, County Council.
Bob Weiner, Technology Committee Chair.
Tony Gardner, Chief of Administrative Services.
Fabrice Dubec with Diamond Technologies.
And now we have two other folks that are sitting around the room. If you'd please identify yourselves.
Anthony DiFiore, Legislative Aide to Council President Bullock.
And Jim Marvelius, Legislative Aide to Councilman Shelton.
Thank you very much. There are some other committee meetings going on right now, so folks will be coming and going as they go. Also, would you please introduce yourself?
Jim Will, Council Policy Director.
Thank you for joining us. So, the items for discussion, and there are some ones that had to be added because of timeliness. The first one is Executive Branch Technology Updates. And then we have Tony Gardner, who is the General Manager of, what's our department?
Administrative Services.
Administrative Services. We'll be discussing the process for obtaining an RFP, request for production. Is that correct?
Request
for proposal in order to, for council to reach out to get a quote through the bidding system for video for council, for the public to see. Then we'll be discussing Newcastle County TV operations, and then also discussion on boards and commissions and how we're doing in terms of the various permutations of making their information available to the public. So in deference to our guest, why don't we start off first with Tony Gardner. Tell us about your position and the responsibilities in your department.
Okay. Tony Gardner, Chief of Administrative Services, and normally what we do is we oversee procurement as well as processing and distribution of mail. So we oversee any procurement, anything that is purchased by the county, we actually oversee that process, and it comes through my office. So that's it in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. And what's your background?
I was at DuPont for 21 years, 13 years in sourcing and logistics, which is procurement pretty much. But I spent 20 years, I was in sales, 4 years in sales, and another 3 years in R&D. So that's the breakdown for 22 years. And
you joined us relatively recently?
I joined the county October of 2013.
Very good. So thank you for that short introduction. Tell us a little bit about the RFP process.
Okay. The first thing we need to do in order to go out for a bid, you need to have a scope or specs that we can send out so the vendors can see what they're bidding on. So a lot of times you have to either write some type of scope of work, so when we send it out, they can bid on that particular scope. A lot of times what we do is we send it out, either we put it on the website, that's one avenue, but also we advertise it in the newspaper twice in 2 consecutive weeks. So it doesn't have to be the same day. It could be on a Monday, 1 week, and then the following week it could be on a Wednesday. So we do that 2 consecutive weeks. But also we have email notification, which is what we do is if we know a list of vendors can do the work, if you suggest a vendor, but we have a list of other vendors that we know can do that kind of work as well, we'll shoot them out an email with the scope that you're looking for, and then we'll give a time frame for them to respond with the proposal. So normally that takes about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and then we have to review the proposals when they come back into the office. So that's kind of like the process in a nutshell. It's kind of like getting the scope, sending it out to a list of vendors, or advertising it on the website as well as in the newspaper, and then getting a response back within 2 weeks.
Is there a pre-approved list, and must you be on that pre-approved list to bid?
No, it's not a pre-approved list. It's pretty much a list. We may have a list of vendors that can do that kind of work, but it's not pre-approved. Once we do is we send it. What we do is we send it out to a group of folks that can do the work that we know of. But we also have open advertising where we send it out on the website as well as the newspaper. So anyone that feel that they can do that kind of work, they can respond to the bid.
Mm-hmm. And the county has a policy of also trying to advance minority contractors as well. Would you explain that?
What we try to do is we definitely want a lot of participation. So we want to reach out to anyone that can do that kind of work. So we want to definitely reach out to local vendors, but also minority vendors. So if any vendors that are qualified, we want to make sure we reach out. So we don't actually target those vendors, but we want to make sure we get as much participation as possible. So that's kind of like the process, and we want everyone to participate that's qualified. Actually,
very good. And now tell us specifically. We just received today from the executive branch of government a bid. Could you identify and explain what it is?
Repeat that again.
There was a bid that came across today from an email that we received, and let me hand it to you.
Okay.
We'll mark it Exhibit A. Video production, sorry about that, that's an inside joke. BID 155A-308. And why don't you identify, it says bid for video productions.
Right. Oh yeah, I don't have any information in regards to this bid. That's kind of like the process. My office handles the particular bids, so I don't get into the weeds of each particular bid, but folks in my office, my buyers, they kind of like review the bids when they come in. They look at it. A lot of times we go with the best possible price if all bidders are qualified. So we always look at the lowest bid. If all the bidders are qualified, we're looking at the lowest bid, and that's how we normally select our bidders.
And do other factors come in besides lowest bid in terms of quality?
Quality have to be responsible, and they have to respond in a timely fashion. So if they're responsible, they respond within the time limits that we give them, and the price is the lowest price. That's the direction we normally go in.
Okay.
Not always the case, but that's the direction we always go in, with the lowest possible price.
Maybe I could ask Daniel Shearquest to explain a little bit about this bid.
Okay, good.
This would definitely be a procurement question, but this is video production bid 155SA-308.
Scope of works on page 3.
Scope of work.
Or the numbering might be off because of the way I print.
Thank you. Shoot video. So this is it's a bid for selecting a vendor, basically, who will manage video productions, basically for the county, for ideally all or any committee or board that would be willing to be part of it. So I think the question is, where are we, or how are we going with this process? This bid has been submitted, to my knowledge. Again, this is, I think, as Tony had mentioned, probably one of his people who could answer it a little bit more precisely. But I do know, hearing that it went through, there's a little bit of a delay because of the process. There's a very stringent process that Tony's team has in place to make sure that they have the right vendor. And from my knowledge, I believe there's a couple of weeks that we have.
Yeah, it takes 2 weeks. 2 weeks because it's going through the process now. So that bid is actually had just gone out, so it's going to take a couple of weeks and actually get the responses back.
And what's the scope of work, or just to be on call?
The scope of work for this is basically selecting a vendor. Selecting a vendor that has the criteria for the productions, camera equipment, things like that. They have a history of it, a track record. If they work with the county, obviously that's a good plus. And those are basically, the scope of work is listed in about 8 sentences over here. So basically that's it to a T. You know, it can go in for county parks. It could be for the police department in different fashions within the county, public works.
So could it be also for county council meetings? Or would that be our own separate bid that county council
It would
put out?
sound, again, and I'm coming a little bit out of left field, not knowing the exact particulars, but it
Right.
sounds like we have this would be for the executive side, and then the legislative branch would need their own. That's what it appears coming out, looking at it from a bird's eye view.
And we can't really make that determination. We probably have to get, I think Antonio Prada in the executive office is leading this particular
Correct.
area in regards to the bid. So not sure every department will cover, but we know what kind of service they provide.
Okay.
So we can't really speak to which branch it's going to cover.
That makes sense. We've had a few additional people come in. Would you please identify yourself?
Valerie George from Councilman Tackett's office.
Thank you.
Karen Barlow, Councilman Bell's office.
Ruby Gilmore, Councilman Powers' office.
Great. And?
Shanice Jackson, Councilman Street's office.
Thank you. Now back to the presentation. Tony, would you now, you've talked about RFP generally, if county council were to do an RFP for county council meetings down in the first floor chambers, or here on the 8th floor conference room, or if we were to meet elsewhere like the Gilliam building, how would we go about structuring that RFP?
Well, it's the same way as we do all RFPs. What we do is you guys have put together a scope of what you want. You send it over to our office, and then we'll set up a time to put it out for bid. So it's pretty much you guys come up with the scope and specs of what you're looking for, and then we'll put it out into the marketplace. So it's pretty much a straightforward process. Once we have a scope, we put it out for bid. So that's how we do it pretty much all our RFPs. It's pretty much the same across the board. It doesn't deviate unless we need to. I mean, you have professional services and you have construction, and maybe some deviations there, but overall, the process is the same when it comes to how we solicit bids.
And what would we want to put into the scope? That's a very broad question, but
Yeah, it's pretty much what you're looking for. So I can't really tell you because, each department will come up with what they want. So it's really up to that department to say, okay, this is what I need. You put it in the scope, you tell us what you want, and then we put it out there in the marketplace. We don't really tell you what you need in your scope because you know what you're looking for. So we don't kind of like get into trying to develop your scope. We're looking for you to provide what you're looking for, a description of what kind of service you want, and then we put it out into the marketplace.
very good. Well, by way of example, I know you said we know what we're looking for. There are 13 individual members of council, and at this point, I don't think there's really a consensus as to what we want. There was a motion that was brought up at the Finance Committee meeting that was voted upon in favor by 8 members of council, which said that there would be live streaming rather than delayed broadcasts. I'm not sure live streaming would have been the correct term. I think it probably would have meant to say live broadcasting rather than delayed streaming.
Okay.
I look to
Yeah, the
Daniel.
linguistics gets a little funny now when you deal with the online internet, because you could stream it and you could also pause it and watch something live a day or an hour later.
Right.
So I think it gets a little different once you're dealing with the internet now. Obviously, we're being recorded. You could watch it on TV, and that's simple to understand if you're going to have it in live or post-prod.
And it's not really clear from the maker of the motion, but I think the main point was that the movement was interested in just live at the time of a meeting. And it didn't specify whether the meeting would simply be the council chambers meeting on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month at 6:30, or whether or not it would include meetings here on the 8th floor of the Gilliam building. So there really isn't an understanding of this, but assuming for discussion's sake that it, taking the motion that it would only be for live, I'm also going to, at the request of Council President Bullock, explore other mechanisms to reach out to the public, including on-demand streaming. not live because not everyone can sit down at 6:30 p.m. on the second and fourth Tuesday to watch it. Most people would prefer to watch it on its own time schedule. Also, it doesn't really specify whether or not it would be seen in available on a smartphone or a tablet, whether it would simply be a YouTube, whether it would be available on ncctv.org, which is our televised station, whether it would be available in Verizon and Comcast, whether it be available in the city of Wilmington as well as in Newcastle County. These were not specified. It was not on the agenda. It didn't seem to really be worked out in detail, and so I have 2 iterations that I tabled. I have another 5 iterations which we're going to talk about generally today, and that they have been introduced to the Clerk of Council for discussion and consideration in an upcoming meeting. And it's sort of like a matrix. It takes a look at all these permutations of possibilities, real time and/or on demand, and then on what format, whether it be on television, on streaming, on a computer, to give everyone all those options and possibilities for council to consider. Now, as far as the budget, the movement said an RFP to hire a consultant, $10,000 for a consulting fee. Would you think, without knowing more, that you could?
It depends. I can't say, you know, the RFP is no cost to that unless you're talking about construction, where they have to pick up the plans and the specs when it's that involved. But RFP is pretty much, it's just the process of going through it. Now, if you hire a consultant, that's when the cost comes in. So I'm not sure where the $10,000 fee come from unless you're hiring someone for that cost.
Well, I would say, to the benefit of County Council, this committee has done that work over the last 2 years, and I don't think we would need a $10,000 consultation fee. I think we now realize that we could do this if we bought a $200 camera, if we wanted to do it on the cheap, and have various members of council staff, I'm not seeing them smile, they could each take turns turning the camera off and on. And then it could be done with an outside vendor, either private sector or the city of Wilmington if it's downstairs in council chambers. They've said they're interested. They already have camera operations set up there. So as my research has shown, Finance Department can't give an exact number until council said exactly what they want. But when I introduced resolutions in January, the Finance Department said until council decides on exactly how those iterations should be implemented, they can give a fiscal note. Council has not yet spoken on the specificity of how they would like it, so Finance still is unable to give a fiscal note, and we really don't need the $10,000 because we've sort of done the research in depth already. Anything to add to that, Daniel?
The only thing that I would add to that, and this is possibly more of a question than an answer, if we could maybe create an RFP, if they created an RFP with the end result to finding out what would actually fit for the legislative branch. I'm wondering if that would be something that would work, and 2, not have to pay anything, meaning requesting their information of what would be best for council, and whether we're going to go live, broadcast it on the web, right. What kind of options can the vendor supply back?
We can do that. We can do that like it's actually RFI, kind of like a request for information. So you're just reaching out to vendors that can fall into that category and say, this is what we're looking for. Can you give us feedback on that kind of service that we're looking for? So you can do an RFI, which you're just looking for general information back from the vendors. And the next step will be the proposal. So you can do it in 2 steps like that as well.
Okay. With that in mind, I think that segues right into a number of options which, or permutations that I've put together with my aide, Lou Hinkle. And I have the list right here in this pack of papers, and hopefully it will appear in one of the papers I'm going through very quickly. Okay, thank you. The resolution number 14-028, introduced January 14th, was to amend Rule 4 of council rules to include notice that all regular meetings of county council are broadcast and streamed. In other words, live and in demand. It seemed to me that that would have zero impact, fiscal impact, because there's real no labor or cost to it. We already have someone on the payroll that already posts. But are any of the aides like to comment on whether or not there would be any cost to having council aides post like we do the audio, post the video to the county website?
Training on how to do it properly.
Training on how to do it properly.
If I may.
Yes, Jim?
Jim Will, Policy Director.
Right.
At this point in time, and unless there's a majority vote of council, only 3 people have access to that website. That's myself, Anthony, and Tara.
Carol?
Tara Finnegan.
Tara Finnegan.
Okay, they post everything.
Mm-hmm.
If anything's going to be posted, unless there's council has a change in heart, okay, it's going to go to one of those 3 people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Daniel Shearquist, you just heard Policy Director Boyle speak about who has access to the county website. Do you have any views on that?
Well, that is what James has just mentioned is true. That those are the individuals who can update the website, and that's how it's been. I have, I'm more of a gatekeeper than anything else.
Right.
If someone else wanted to, someone else who knew what they were doing, and as somebody had mentioned, was properly trained in that, I personally don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to. But I don't think that's really my call. It's if somebody's properly trained and it's a green light, then I would be able to authenticate them to make
Right.
those changes.
Policy Director Boyle, would you provide the resolution that authorized those 3 people?
It was done at a meeting back as a vote, and there was no resolution, and it was done 9 years ago.
Okay. I don't recall that.
Okay. Well, like I said, if you want to bring it before council, I will say this. Okay. I've went through this for years. I depend on the team that has it. Okay. If other people are involved, okay, I would highly suggest to council that the 3 people involved not be involved in it.
Okay, well, I don't recall that there was a resolution 9 years ago to approve just those 3 people.
Usually at that point in time, it was not required that there be a resolution 9 years ago. It was only a change in the rules later that required a resolution.
Okay, I ask you to explain then, if there was no resolution required 9 years ago, then how did the decision get made that only you and 2 other people?
It was brought up before in an executive committee and came up as a discussion item and went up for a vote.
Okay, so can you provide the name of the person that made the motion and the date that it took place?
No. I'm
Okay.
not going back that far, Council.
Okay. Well, I've served on council for 18 years, and I would have to respectfully disagree.
Again,
Let me
if
finish,
you-
please.
if you want to
Let
bring
me
it up to
finish, please.
council.
I have the floor. That 9 years ago, as well as 18 years ago and before, all decisions had to be done by resolution. And unless you can produce some sort of rule that was voted on, I think it's an open process as to how various aides of council can or cannot get on the county website.
Councilman, no different from what I said a few minutes ago. I have no problem if it comes before council by resolution or whatever. If they decide that everybody wants it, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
My thing is that there's nothing in my job specifications that I am responsible for 13 aides.
Okay.
Now, if they want this, okay, I'm no longer responsible for the web.
Okay, thank you.
Now, my problem is the rules of the road are certain things go on the web. Certain things do not go on the web. We've kept very good compliance with what we want. And to be honest with you, there is a fear, okay, that certain council members may not comply. Let's say, for instance,
Thank you.
a political website.
Okay. Thank you, and I don't know, there is a fear what that means, and I don't know who authorized you to be the gatekeeper, but at this point, I'm going to consider this an open issue, and there is no rule that empowers you to have sole exclusive authority, nor Councilwoman or Councilperson Smiley and his aide, and to exclude all other aides and councilpersons. Jim, we're going to move on to another subject.
I just want to say, I don't have exclusive. There are 2 other people who have access to this.
We're going to look into that. Thank you, Jim. So now to go into this Resolution 14-028, as I was saying before, the fiscal note was it cannot be determined until a path forward is selected for how council meetings will be broadcast to the public. That's what the Finance Department said, and of course that would make sense because no more details were at that point available, but now that I've heard from a council aide, it appears that all we would need is training, and that the cost would be de minimis. Daniel, would your people in your department be able to train our aides to be?
At this point in time, we have a release date of about 10 hours. So in the short term, no.
Okay.
But absolutely, I mean, we have a good team, and we want to work on both sides and make everyone happy in an end result. I didn't want to come here and stir any pots up, and it looks like Jim got a little upset. But again, I'm a gatekeeper, and I can only authorize people to have access once they, things have been approved. So I'm all for, sharing information and training people. But yeah, to answer your question, we can definitely get people trained if they'd like to.
So in theory, if we had a $200 video camera, you could train them, any one of them, to post it to the county website, so to be available streaming in a video link right next to the audio link.
Correct. I mean, part of what people will see when we reveal the new website is just the front end, and there's a huge back end that's also been changed. And the back end is where you upload things and make some changes, and that's been really simplified with this new move to the new system. So it takes a little bit of the technicalities out of it, and it makes it a little bit easier for just the average person.
Good. Now also we had introduced another resolution, Lou, besides this one on January 14th, but I don't have it. We are looking now at various iterations. Oh, I know what the other one was. It was asking the county executive to help us implement this, because although we're the legislative branch, the executive branch executes the will of the legislative branch. And it appears to me that that was still one of the opportunities. We can either get into executing our own, or we can have the executive branch, as per our contract, do that. So that's what the other one was that I introduced essentially on January 14th and table. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other iterations which have been filed with the clerk of council. And the first one is requesting, and this is sort of like the everything, requesting Newcastle County Council, this would be a resolution, requesting Newcastle County Council implement both live and video on demand video broadcasts of all publicly advertised Newcastle County Council meetings to be posted to the Newcastle County Council web pages and streamed to the county public television channel, thus viewable either live and/or video on demand, applicable to all publicly advertised Newcastle County Council meetings, either utilizing either the City of Wilmington Television Production Company and/or a private vendor in Council's first floor council chambers, Council's 8th floor conference room, or in any other venue where Council's public meetings may be conducted, like the Gillian Building, or any other place that it's advertised. This is sort of like the everything approach. Went to a Chinese restaurant, it would be ordering from column A and column B. Then the other 5 versions are different permutations of less of that full panoply. And so this will be introduced, and so that we can take a look at all these opportunities. This is what the county council president asked me to just run by us today, put it on a matter of record. The public will be able to see that, and then council members will have a chance to understand that. And these are choices that I'll bring before them for their consideration. Any comments on any of these? Okay. By the way, I just want to take this moment to publicly thank Council President Bullock, who said to me before we had to go to another meeting that he is generally in support of this approach and the direction that I'm headed as a subcommittee chair underneath him. And Anthony, if you would take back to your boss how much I appreciate his guidance and leadership.
Sure.
Right. So at this point, did we want to, Tony, did you have anything else that you could add?
No, that's it. I don't really
Okay.
have anything to add to that.
Would you be able to sit through the other 2 item agendas, or do you have to go?
Oh, I can sit through.
Okay, great. And if you have to leave, I understand as well.
Okay.
I want to discuss the Newcastle County TV operations. Lou?
Well, that was, Antonio Prado was invited to come and speak on that issue, but as a result of time constraints for the upcoming budget address, he wasn't able to attend.
Okay.
He will make himself available to our next Technology Committee meeting to discuss that in further detail.
Very good. Well, let me just, while we have the subject, make everyone available the fact that when we do a bidding, not only would we include, I would think, private vendors, but we could also include the City of Wilmington Television Operations Company, and I'm not quite sure what their name is. But they have indicated through their policy director that they would be interested in bidding only a portion of the work. That coming from our council chambers on the first floor, which we share with the city council. And they already have built into the room lights and cameras, a 3-camera operation, so that they can do what's called a wide angle shot, an establishing shot it's called, a zoom on one speaker and a 1-camera headshot on the other speaker. So let's say there's a colloquy going on between the council president and a particular member of council, or between someone speaking at the speaker's podium and a member of council who is asking questions. The TD, the technical director, has cameras dedicated to those shots, and they can flip back and forth as they hear people begin to speak. So it would give us the Cadillac approach, and it's already built in. And when I asked the city council policy director, he said, don't hold them to the costs, but he said that pending council's approval, that the cost he envisioned would be like a secondary job, possibly, for the city crew, camera crew, where they would then earn $30 an hour, maybe $35 an hour, and he said, don't hold me to this. And that regardless of how long the council meetings were, they might charge as much as 3 hours time, so you'd be looking at $90 to $100 per council meeting. I thought that was a very reasonable cost, and of course they're there already. And we would W-9 them, or we'd put the, W-9 them.
I know.
What would we do?
I-9 or W-2, I think, is the combinations.
That's why I didn't become a tax attorney. But they would be private contractor vendors with us. So they would not be with the City of Wilmington, but with them as a second job. Upstairs are not interested. We have had many camera people up here, WDEL and others, and they typically are positioned where the OK Video position is right now. From here you can simply get a wide angle shot. As you can see, he can pan and look at different people. Now the thing about doing it live up here, it would be an extra cost. If council be the will of council, I think I've heard that before, would the will of council be the will of council, we could do it live up here, or we could just do it video streaming, as I have been doing with these technology committee meetings. And as you know, it's costing me $150 per committee meeting. It could be done, by someone less professional if we had our own camera, but this is a good camera, obviously. You can see on the replay at bobweiner.com, which is really simply just a link to a YouTube station that costs nothing, that can be posted instead, and preferably on the county website on a video link right next to the audio link. Any comments, gratuitous or otherwise, on what I just had to say? And anyone think that it should take a different approach than I'm proceeding? Okay. I don't think we need to go into other iterations. I think you understand where I'm going with that. I want to talk about boards and commissions. Now, some of the boards and commissions are quasi-judicial. Just like the Supreme Court, they don't want. They think it would be take away from the concentration of the judges, the solemnity of it, if you will, to have cameras. Some courts have not. In contradistinction, or in contrast, with public hearings of a legislative branch, where the Supreme Court has clearly said there is no expectation of privacy, and video cameras in the 21st century are absolutely protected as a part of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. So with that in mind, I believe the court administration is reconsidering whether or not to telecast Board of Adjustment meetings, which are quasi-judicial, sort of like our judicial branch of government. The planning board is something different because it's a public hearing. So in any event, my point is that one of the things that we got a commitment from CAO Grimaldi is, to the extent possible, we want to post for all the boards and commissions, say we have a dozen, put that on a matrix. On the other side of the matrix, we would have audio link and or video link for the telecast meeting itself. Then we would have the meeting minutes, a written document, electronically posted, a meeting agenda, electronically posted, and then the annual report. Now, right now, there is sort of a checkerboard of performance in that regard. And it does take a certain dedicated employee in each department to take care of that. So, Daniel, you, my aide, Lou Hinkle, and I have talked about this, and you've heard the CAO make a commitment on this. What do you have to add to that?
Well, I guess this, just to take it a step back, it really coincides with what you're trying to do here with the open government, with video and putting everything out there. And exactly what the executive and the CAO wants is the open government, and they're all for that. It does get a little funny with certain boards and commissions. Some are purely for the executive side, some are purely for the legislative side. So enforcing that when they don't do their agenda gets a little dicey, and it usually is a liaison or a dedicated staff member who is going a little bit above and beyond and helping out to do these things. So there's what we have already set up for the new website when it launches is exactly what we have now. There'll be agendas that are there. There'll be meeting minutes when applicable, and there are some particular committees that actually have the audio already. That they will continue that way, and obviously we want to expand on that. This particular committee is lucky enough to start with the video, so the video will be attached through a link similar to the way you would find the audio. You just download the audio link. To the right of that will be the video link. So the concepts are there, the ideas are understood, and we're definitely going forward in that concept.
Very good. So ultimately we can have a matrix that we can post in the spirit of transparency that the Gordon administration and the county council wants, that explains, for example, why a particular board doesn't have an audio and or video. And so the public will be able to look at it and say, well, there's a reason why Board of Adjustment isn't audio or video. It's like our Supreme Court. And then we can begin methodically to fill in that matrix and provide more transparency to the public, collaboratively working together, the executive and the legislative branches.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, we also have one of our row officers here who's got a lot of experience in this area, Michael Kasakowski. Why don't you tell us what your department is and what you do?
Well, as a recorder of deeds in Newcastle County, we're the repository for all land transaction records. And of course, in essence, the real estate industry cannot function without the Recorder of Deeds office because we provide those consistencies, conveyance of title. 90% of the documents that we record are mortgages, assignments, satisfactions, and deeds. Since 2000, we have been electronic on our side. On February the 10th, 2014, we launched electronic recording for assignments and satisfaction. So now we're offering a third alternative to our primary business organizations. They can continue to still walk their documents in, mail them in, or they can send them over more efficient, more effective electronically. What does that create? It creates a paperless environment. It gives us an opportunity to track long-term as far as when we look at job placement, when we look at people that are retiring. I'm looking at as far as reducing the population through attrition. So what happens is that it creates two of my sections where we would normally take a mail-in document or a walk-in document. Now we have paper. So those documents would have to be scanned through the imaging retrieval system. Doing electronically, and the more doc types that we add electronically, the paperless we will be. What's really unique is that back in 2005, we created a technology fund. And that technology fund has been utilized not only for the Recorder of Deeds Office, but to also help and assist other departments to advance and upgrade their systems. We provided technology, ROD Technology Fund money to public safety, for the NC4 Street Smart, also for the 911, 911 Smart, looking at the audio video upgrades for the county executive, and any department in Newcastle County government that has their plan, that we're looking for additional dollars to assist in improving their technological advancements. So all I have to do is put in a request.
You know what question was coming next.
Yes, sir.
Should County Council decide ultimately on its method, whether it be a one-camera operation or a 2 or a 3, somewhere in the cost of $200 to $25,000 to $50,000 a year, may we enter into discussions with you and your department about providing a cash stream for our annual budget to pay the cost of this?
Sure. Absolutely. We're funding the first year of the NC4 Street Smart, which will give Newcastle County Police Department the access to information expeditiously, which will provide the information for the detectives and officers. We'll be the first county on the East Coast that'll have this technological upgrade. And I see as I mentioned to Colonel Setting, that when, just like the TAPS program, the implementation of the TAPS program, that what this provides by lowering crime in communities increases property values. So I see the big picture, okay? And anytime that we can assist and create those benefits and those positive outcomes, the money's there for your utilization. So I give you, it's just a matter of submitting your proposal. If the money's in the tech fund, I did inform the county executive, and I guess I mentioned to you guys last time, was that, I don't see upgrading my software in the Recorder of Deeds Office until my vendor can show me that the upgrades are worth the bang for the buck. Okay, right now everything is running very consistent, very smoothly. The launch for the e-recording went very smooth. We tested it 6 times before we launched, and the money's there. So I don't plan on, like I said, I don't plan on implementing any software upgrades until 2015. Currently, I believe there's $280,000 in the tech fund. I do know that the public safety is looking at some other technological advancements. The NC4 Street Smart, we're going to fund the first year. That'll be $95,000, but there's money there that's available.
Well, Recorder of Deeds Michael Kasakowski, I want to thank you for your vision, and as you said, you do see the big picture. And what better use of a technology fund than to fund technology to make government more transparent for each and every citizen in Newcastle County? I got emails from folks that were very strongly supportive of this, some of who say that they're aged, infirmed, they're not able to come to county government meetings, they're very interested, but they are not available at 6:30 p.m. And they really would like to see these county council committee meetings when a lot of the work gets done, sometimes it just seems like we're just stamping of approval once we get down to the council meetings, because a lot of the real business takes place right here in this 8th floor conference room. Do I have any comments on this subject from anyone else on this subject? Lou, is there any other item that we need to be discussing?
That's where we're at right now, sir.
Okay. Any comments for the good of the order? This, before the meeting adjourns, I just want to thank Tony Gardner, who came and talked about RFP. Mike Koskowski, who talked about the technology fund being available to fund council's desires. Daniel Shearquest, executive assistant to the county executive, who came and answered a number of questions. My aide, Lou Hinkle, and the various aides that have been here, and also our member of the public. Why are you coming to these meetings? Your name again, please.
Fabrice Dubec with Diamond Technologies. It's very informative. It's important to know and understand what is done for the public, to better understand how Newcastle County is ran. And to your point, as far as the video is concerned, I was able to see a link where I was not able to attend a couple of weeks ago, and it's visibly an asset to be able to remotely at any given time to be aware of what is going on. Of a click of a button, you can go to a link and be aware of what your county is doing for you. And I think it's a huge asset. Whether it's video, I mean, video is one thing because you get to maybe personalize yourself with the people involved. The audio is a huge asset, but I think the video makes it more interactive and more live for the people who want to participate in.
Yes. So now we have our next meeting. Our monthly meeting we're scheduled on the 3rd Tuesday of each month. The 3rd Tuesday of April will be Tuesday, April 15th at 1:30 p.m. I hope to see you all there. We'll be following up on these points as well as drilling further down into our new county website about to be launched in a few hours. Our tech was unavailable today due to illness, but I think we had more than enough to discuss at this meeting. So without further ado, unless I hear anything from anyone else, at 2:20 p.m. by the clock here in the 8th floor conference room, meeting adjourned.